My brother left his kids in my empty house for days, and now they're missing. He's blaming me, but the truth is much darker than I ever imagined. My brother left his kids in my empty house for days, and now they're missing. He's blaming me, but the truth is much darker than I ever imagined. My brother James, 34, and I, 30, have a complicated history. We grew up in a small town in Michigan, raised by our grandparents after our parents died in a car accident when I was 5 and James was 9. Our grandparents were loving but strict, especially our grandfather, who was a retired military officer. He believed in discipline and structure, something James always rebelled against. While I grew up quiet, studious, and always trying to please our grandparents, James was the troublemaker. He skipped school, hung out with the wrong crowd, and got into fights. This created a rift between us that only widened as we got older. When James was 18, he had a huge fight with our grandfather about his future. Grandfather wanted him to join the military or go to college, but James wanted to become a musician and tour with his band. The argument ended with James storming out of the house, guitar in hand, vowing never to return. For years, we barely kept in touch. I'd get phone calls or texts now and then, usually when James needed money. It hurt that he was absent, but I was also angry at him for abandoning our family. I focused on my studies, earned a scholarship to college, and built a life for myself. James's life took a different path. He married his high school girlfriend, Lisa, when she got pregnant at 19. They had Daniel, who's now 15, and Carol, who's 12, a few years later. James tried to settle down, working construction jobs and playing gigs on the weekends, but he struggled to take on the responsibility of being a husband and father. 3 years ago, Lisa left James. She was fed up with his unreliability and suspected he was being unfaithful. She moved to California with her new boyfriend, leaving the kids with James. It was a messy situation, and James suddenly found himself a single father with no clue how to handle it. Since then, I've tried to help when I can. Sometimes I take the kids on weekends or help with school supplies, but James often pushes me away, saying he doesn't need my charity. I think he's embarrassed by how his life turned out compared to mine. I have a good job as a software developer, a nice house, and a stable relationship. James is still struggling to make ends meet. Last week, I went camping with my boyfriend, Mark. We've been together for 2 years, and this was our first real vacation together. We went to a remote campsite in northern Michigan, completely off the grid for 5 days, no cell service, no internet, just us and nature. It was beautiful and peaceful, a much-needed break from our busy lives. When we returned to civilization yesterday, my phone blew up with notifications, missed calls, angry text messages, and voicemails, all from James. My heart sank as I listened to the messages, each more frantic than the last. I called James immediately, confused and worried about what was going on. He answered on the first ring and started yelling before I could even say hello. "Where the hell have you been?" he shouted. "Where are Carol and Daniel? How could you be so irresponsible?" I was completely lost. "James, calm down. What are you talking about? I just got back from my camping trip. What's going on with Carol and Daniel?" James's voice was a mix of anger and panic. "I left them at your house days ago. You were supposed to watch them while I handled some personal matters. How could you just leave them?" My mind was spinning. I had no idea what he was talking about. "James, we never agreed that I would watch the kids. I've been gone for 5 days. I didn't get any message from you about watching them. I texted you," James insisted. "I told you I needed you to take care of them for a few days. You always say you want to help, so I thought you'd be okay with it." I checked my phone again, scrolling through my messages. Nothing. "James," I said slowly, "I didn't get any message from you." There was a pause on the other end of the line. When James spoke again, his voice was lower, almost timid. "I didn't actually see you when I dropped them off. I was in a hurry. I told them to ring the doorbell and wait for you to let them in." A chill ran down my spine. "James, are you telling me you left your kids outside my house without making sure I was home or that they got inside safely?" "I had to leave quickly," James said defensively. "I thought you'd be home. You're always home." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "James, the kids are missing now because you didn't make sure they were safe. This isn't my fault. We need to call the police." "No," James's voice was sharp. "We can't involve the police. I'm in some legal trouble. If the police start investigating, it could make things worse." I pressed him for more information about his legal troubles, but he wouldn't give me any details. He just kept insisting that it was my fault for not being home and not checking my messages. "James," I said firmly, "I didn't get any message. You should have confirmed that I was available before leaving your kids. This is your fault, not mine." You can click on share more to see if there is a part 2.